It Happened on the Job, the podcast for relatable conversations with contractors. Sponsored by Goodman Insurance.
Welcome to It Happened on the Job, episode 97 today. My name is Mike. That's Brian.
Yo.
Our guest today via Zoom, all the way from Dallas, Texas, is James Ellis, CEO of Arundel Group Holdings. How you doing, sir?
I am well.
Good.
You?
Good. Doing great. Thank you. Appreciate you taking the time to join us today as we venture out of California.
Yeah.
We're getting a few more guests outside the state, and I love it. And I think I said it before, I've got a little affinity for Texas as I lived there for a little bit. So it's good to have some fellow Texans on every once in a while.
I'll tell you, welcome home. I'm about 40 miles from Fort Worth right now. So
There you go.
As close as you can get.
Yeah, a lot closer than I am. Well, for a number of reasons, but geographically being the biggest one. But anyway, so James, as we get started, give us a little history on air. I know we talked quite a bit off air, but if you could, apologize for having to repeat yourself a little bit, but how you got started in this industry and the road to where you are now with Arendelle. Well, hold on. Actually, let me back up a little bit.
Okay.
Because I have a couple daughters. Is this a Frozen thing? Is this with the castle and everything else, or?
Arendelle is spelled. The Arendelle Castle is actually spelled Arundle, and mine is Arundel, Arundel, and Arendelle is actually a real castle in England.
No,
all right.
My Arendelle is actually a real castle in England. So
I don't get to go home and tell my daughter that I spoke with the president of the castle in Frozen.
No, as a matter of fact, if you look behind me, you will see our logo for Arundel Group.
It's a castle.
Yeah.
And I will tell you the story of how I got the name Arendelle. It wasn't some epiphany that I had, and I have a daughter that grew up in the Frozen time frame as well. But and I honestly did not know that was the same name. One of my clients one day goes, "Oh, Arendelle Frozen," and I go, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "That's the name of the castle in Frozen." I go, "It is." That's how I know how it's spelled differently, is because I had to go look it up. And so, I merged a couple of companies 7 years ago now, and one of the partners was from Bristol, England. And he had incorporated a whole bunch of different companies to do all these different ventures, and they were all named after castles in England.
That's awesome.
So when we split up 2 years later, all of the work that I was bringing in and performing that I was going to take with me were contracted through Arendelle. And it was Arendelle Construction at that time. And so when we split, just to make it easier so I didn't have to go to my customers and go, "Oh, the name is changing," all this, we just split it, and he took a bunch of the LLCs and I took the Arendelle LLC, and I took it as the owner. And so I like the name so much. My other companies that I'm creating all have the name Arendelle in it of what they are, except for the companies that were existing.
Right.
We created Arundel Holdings 2 years ago because we were spreading out and diversifying and taking on different segments of what we do. And so in order to solidify the companies in under one umbrella, and it was also cost-cutting measures, like Arundel Group Holdings obtains the insurance for all the other companies. And so since it's one insurance across
group buying power,
yeah, it's group buying power. We're the Walmart of the construction industry.
Right.
And so that's just kind of how it worked out. And, and then I always liked the fact of the castles. I grew up in, when the very first Excalibur movie came out. And so I was already a fan of Camelot.
Evil and castles. Yeah, exactly.
So it just kind of worked out, and I've kept the name, and we like it a lot. And so, like one of our other companies, Arundel Design Build, its logo is a really cool shield. It's a knight's shield, and so it looks really nice. But then my utility concrete and site work company is called Dark Horse. But that name, we created the logo on it, and it's a skull. And everybody said, why in the world would you create a skull? And I said, because it looks really cool on the side of heavy equipment. And so, you've got this great big yellow machine that weighs 80,000 pounds bearing down on you with a skull on it. It just looks right.
That's awesome.
And so we do. It's a really cool looking skull. So if you go to our websites, you'll see the logos and everything like that. And that was really well thought out. People are like, "Oh God, this guy's got a skull like everybody else."
pretty recognizable. Yeah.
Yeah, but I paid somebody a lot of money to come up with so that our skull would look a lot different.
Different, yeah.
And they're the ones that came up with the shield and everything like that. But they're very distinct among them.
That's awesome.
So, and we just opened up another Arendelle name because very recently I began developing. And it's not up on our website yet, but it'll be Arundel Development. And it's to separate out the developing activities that we're currently doing under Arundel Design Build.
Right.
And the developing part is new to us. Because in my 37 years of being involved in engineering and construction, I've always come in after what developers really do when they're putting a project together. I've always been brought in after they've done what they do.
Right.
And so at my age, I'm learning a whole new part of
whole new piece of the
Yeah, I've learned how to read pro formas, and when I went to engineering school, they didn't really teach us that.
Yeah,
and
right.
So I'm having
not so much about the construction at that point. Is it about the numbers, huh?
Oh, I told somebody the other day. I said, after having been in this business as long as I have, and having been involved with as much construction as I have been, both on the engineering side as well as the building side of it, generally, when I go to meetings, I'm the smartest guy in the room, just by sheer fact. I'm usually the oldest, and and I've been around the longest in doing this. But now that I'm meeting with bankers, and I'm meeting with lawyers, and I'm meeting with co-developers, and I'm meeting with landowners, and I have come to realize I am no longer the smartest guy in the room.
You're now the lost puppy.
I am the intern.
The lost puppy.
I'm definitely the intern, and I tell them, I'm like, can we just get the financing part of this done? So
I know I got to be in this meeting, but I really want to do the other stuff.
Go play.
It's been very interesting. I've learned so much about the financing part of it, and debt and equity and investments, and how the other half lives. I've built things over all these years, and I've handed off keys, but I never owned any of it.
Well, I'm sure it gives you a different appreciation for the construction piece from a timeline and a scheduling and a cost and all that other stuff standpoint too, right? Like it makes you understand.
Well, you do because I always wondered why. Holy crap! They've been working on this deal for 2 years, and we're just now starting to build it. And I'm getting a whole lot better understanding of that part, especially now. In my engineering firm that I own, we do zoning changes and things like that. So I knew that if you're having to rezone a property, it's going to take a long time,
right? Because
we do that. We do the zoning changes, and we do we certify and do the platting and all of those things. So I understood that was something that took a long time. And, and of course you got to get your drawings done and all that. And we have licensed architects in our design build firm. So we do drawings as well. So I understood that part of it, but a lot of it has to do with, and I'll give you a good, for example, my very first development that I'm doing, where I'm on the development team, I actually am the development team. It's a 240 unit apartment complex, and it's being financed with the HUD guarantee, the HUD 221 program. They put right on their website that it is a 9-month to 12-month process to obtain that financing.
Good night.
I mean, to tell you what, you have to
they're not ashamed about that process, huh?
No, so at least they're upfront about it.
Right. Yeah.
At least they tell you flat out, okay, well, you're going to come to a conceptual meeting, and then after the conceptual meeting, we're going to give you feedback, and then you're going to come back after that feedback with, a little bit more information. And then if we like it, we're going to give you an invitation, and then you don't even start drawings or anything till you get that invitation. So now you're on a 6-month thing of getting an architect and all the engineers and everybody in place and the green consultants and the radon testing and all that. So you're on 6 months to get those drawings done. And then you go back in and you start it over, you start the process of having them review everything again. And so then that takes another 3 months. And so that's your 9 months. So you could possibly, if you're really good, you could close it in 9 months. But the average is 12 months.
Jeez,
and so this
crazy.
whole time you're turning and burning, if you've bought the property, you're carrying your holding costs and you're carrying the insurance on it and all of that kind of stuff. And you're out getting the investors because, the loan is an 85% L to C. And so, you're, if you got a $30 million project, it doesn't take very long to know what your equity part has to be. Plus, there's some things that they will not finance. And one of those is the builder's fee. Well, on a project like that, the builder's fee could be $1.2 million, $1.3 million. Well, they don't finance that. So you have to pre-deposit that in the bank. So, by the time you're through on a project like mine, your equity is, you have to raise around $6 million in equity to get that deal done.
Jeez.
Yeah. So that's what I've been doing for the last 2.5 months. And I kind of feel like that guy at the party that, has a picture of his kid on vacation and nobody wants to talk to him. He keeps showing the same pictures and I'm over there going, hey, you have any money you want to invest? I feel like that guy.
I got 5 on it.
Yeah. It's like, okay, what's the minimum investment? Well, I really need $6 million.
I don't like having these conversations, so minimum is 6.
Yeah, exactly. I want to raise it all from one person.
Right.
And so it's been a very interesting learning curve and how to read the pro formas and all that. I mean, I've been an executive for, since I was 26. So I've always read the P&L statements and, I live by the P&L statements and balance sheets and all that. And they didn't teach me that in engineering school either, but I learned that part of it. But when you're doing something like this, then you're dealing with so much more and you've got to
futures and everything else.
Well, you got to worry about returns to the investors because there are people out there that will give you that $5 and $6 million, but the returns, the way they want their returns is
they want it back. Yeah.
Yeah. And they want it in 3 years, Right. And so you've got to get their money, get it in, design it, build it, and get it stabilized, which is 94% occupied. And then you can convert to your mortgage. And then that's when they get paid back. And so you've got these folks that are breathing down your neck that, you've taken on $6 million of their money.
Says the guy laughing.
What else? What else can you do? Right.
Yeah.
What else can you do? But, it is, and I have to say that I at least came in with a complete understanding of what design and construction is. So I'm a little more ahead of the curve than somebody that comes right out of college and he might have a degree in finance, but he has no idea what it really takes to get a building built.
Right.
So he steps off into this, I'm going to go be a multifamily investor. Okay, cool. So what are you going to do? You got no money. How are you going to become a multifamily investor? And they start trying to figure this stuff out. And at least, like I said, I felt I was ahead of the learning curve because I knew what the design and the construction was going to take. So we, it's been very interesting. And, most people, when they decide to start becoming investors versus just working for a living, they'll go buy a duplex and then they'll flip that duplex and then, 5 more projects down the pike, they'll go buy an 8-plex or they'll go buy a little 30-unit apartment complex and rehab it or something. Me, I take on a $35 million apartment complex.
I was going to say, I feel like the first step in development is, a 1/4 acre lot and putting a duplex on it and then getting that built out and rented out, but not a
Yeah, you know me.
I feel like that's the Texas way, though.
Yeah, right. Bigger, better.
Go big or go home. You know, as the old saying goes. You know, I mean, but for me, it's not exciting if I can do it in my sleep. You know,
right.
But you know, I got to have something to keep me
keep the juices flowing. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, because in all the time frame that I've been in the business, I mean, there's so many projects that I have been on of such varying types. You know, not just building an everyday retail center or designing a retail center. I mean, my earliest years while I was in school was in the early to mid 80s, and we were building high rises all over Dallas at that time. So my first projects were high rises.
All the big stuff, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah,
we're doing bathroom remodels, huh?
No, you know, it's the funny thing is the only bathroom remodel I've ever done was for my parents, and so I remodeled my parents' bathroom and built it out and made it bigger for them. But that's really basically about the only bathroom remodel I've ever done.
That's my uncle. My uncle's a general superintendent for Robbins and Morton, something like that, out in Florida. They're huge, do big old hotels and hospitals. And my mom called him and said, "Hey, I need my bathroom redone. Can you redo my bathroom?" And I kind of looked at her. I'm like, "Yeah, he doesn't lay tile. He doesn't do, you know what I mean? Like, sure, he knew about it and he was glad to come out and help and do it, but it's probably the only thing he's ever done like that."
No, well, let me tell you something. Just because you're the boss doesn't mean you've actually done it.
Right.
I mean, I will tell you right now, I am not the guy you want hanging your door. I can
get one of these.
Oh, no. I mortised the door the wrong way one time, you know, because I was like, at the time I had just overseen this historic renovation of a hotel condo in South Beach in Florida. And so I had watched 82 doors get hung on these rooms. And my parents, I had come back to Texas, and my parents needed a new door on the bathroom, which I have now renovated. And I said, I can hang that door, no problem. So my father, being the cheap person that he is, instead of buying a pre-hung door, he just buys the slab part of it.
All the parts, yeah.
No, he just bought the slab part of it, and so you have to mortise it. You know, you have to cut in where the hinge goes.
Yeah.
So I went out and bought this cool little kit, and I chipped it all out, and I was so proud of myself, and I mortised it backwards. So I went
it's hanging upside down.
No. So I went back down to Home Depot and I bought him a pre-hung door, and I called the guy off of Craigslist and had him hang the door. You know, I'm really good. I know how to tell you to get it done. I know how to stand there and say, get it done. I know what it has to look like when it's finished, and I'll complain if it's wrong, but I am not the guy you want hanging your door. Yeah. And, you know, I have a company that we pour, 500 yards of concrete on a daily basis. And I am not the guy you want walking behind the trowel machine. I will tell you that. That's not me. I don't do that.
Know your strengths, right?
Oh, yeah. I was having to negotiate with a guy yesterday because we're building podium slabs now for underground parking structures. When they come up, the first floor is a podium slab. And so I decided to get out of the rental business because the way that we get the forms for that generally is we have companies that we rent those forms from. So we just send them the drawings, and then they send us a package, and my guys in the field put it together. So I was negotiating with a guy on buying all these things. He's like, well, don't you want this and that and this? And I'm like, I have no idea. I send this to you, and
you're supposed to tell me what I need.
Exactly. And he's like, well, don't you own the company? I said, yeah. And he goes, well, you don't know how to do this? And I said, dude, I have like 50 people that know how to do that. I don't do that. And so it's funny. And so like with your uncle, if he's a general superintendent, unless he came up through like the Carpenters Union or something like that, he probably never swung a hammer.
Yeah.
He's the guy that he's looking at a schedule, and he knows those dates he has to hit. He knows when those materials have to hit the ground, and that's what he does. And, that's, there's different, in construction, there's all those different layers of what people do. Superintendents push the job.
Yeah.
Their job, they watch the schedule and they make sure that everything flows. And then there's a project manager, and their entire function in life is customer service and the financial part of the job. They're the people that are going to pick who the subs are. They're going to, sign those contracts, and they're going to negotiate the pricing, and that's their job. And then there's some pampered executive somewhere who's sitting behind a desk watching the cameras out on the job sites, and then he's going and bitching at the project. So, God forbid he goes to the field. You don't want that cat in the field. So, yeah.
So where did you get started? How did you start? I know off air we talked, and you said you went to UT. Did you come out with?
I was at UT, and I was not like most of my friends that, their parents just paid for their college. I actually had to work my way through. And so I was working while I was there, but I started out working in testing labs. And so testing labs are an engineering, they're called geotechnical engineers.
Right.
And if you're familiar with those from the testing labs, I started out in the field as a technician.
Pulling the test. Yeah. The course. Yeah.
Slumping and dumping and taking density tests and doing rebar inspections and at the same time, because I was in school for engineering, they were allowing me to intern with them as well. And so I was in the process of, I was designing along with the engineers. And so I did that. I went to school for 8 years. I mean, I was a long-term student. And so the entire time I was working, and so high rises, wastewater treatment plants, I was involved with burying 60 acres of hazardous nuclear waste at a nuclear weapons facility in South Carolina. I have designed dams and, some of the, structural steel buildings and things of that nature. So as I said, I was in the field for 9 years while I was going to school. And when I came out of school was about the time I finally decided I needed to be out of the field. And the very first position that I got was as a manager of a company, and I was in Houston. And it turns out I was very good at sales. And did not how could I have known? I was the guy that went all over the country. When you had the most difficult build you needed to have supervised, I was that guy you sent. And so I was on top of mountains in New Mexico. I was in the middle of the Navajo Indian Reservation. As I said, I was on a nuclear weapons facility. I was on nuclear power plants during outages. And so when I took that first management job, and my boss just said, you have to go sell. You got to get work. You got to land work. And I'm like, well, how do I do that? And he's like, I don't know. You got to go do it. And I was like, okay. So I had to self-teach myself how to do sales, and it turned out I was good at it. And I tripled the business in the first year. And, he didn't want to give me a raise, and I was single at the time. And he's like, what do you want? And I said, I want to be a vice president. He goes, okay, you're a vice president. And of course, no raise. But I did get new business cards.
There you go.
So that was cool. But that's how I got started. And 4 years later, I went out on my own, and I've been on my own ever since. And I've got 6 companies that are actively working underneath my holding company.
Wow.
And so, I try to do what it is that I do, which is to create opportunities for the other companies, and keep our face out there, and to be very visible in the marketplace. I'm having to learn your ways, which means social media.
Well, yeah, kind of on that. Yeah. So how are you doing that? What's your? We like to talk about digital marketing with especially in this space in construction and with contractors. So.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you a funny story, and it's funny only because it actually happened. So, having been around as long as I have, and, I pretty much think, God, I know everybody. I know everybody, so I'm just going to get work because I know everybody. People are going to give me work because they know me. So about 3.5 years ago now, my Dark Horse company was negotiating a 10-story high rise for us to do all the concrete. And so, parking structure, the building was an all concrete building going up. It was a very large concrete contract. And so I'm negotiating with this company, and I won't mention their names, but they're owned by a whole bunch of folks that are a lot younger than I am. And so I'm dealing with who I would call kids, and no offense, but who I would call kids, and so I'm talking with these folks, and then I had been over there and talked to them probably 5 times, I guess, and then I got a phone call from the main guy, and he said, "Look, we can't negotiate this with you any further." And I said, "Well, why is that?" And he's like, "Because our risk company says that you don't have a social presence." And I said, and he goes, "Well, your website looks like a child did it." And I'm like, "Well, because a child did. I did it."
A mental child when it comes to,
Well, yeah. I mean, I went on to web.com and created a website, and I thought, hey, I have a website. But there was no Instagram, no Twitter, no Facebook, no anything. And I didn't think I needed it. And he's like, there's no way to verify. And I'm like, look, I was designing these buildings when you weren't even thought about. And so, and you're going to tell me I can't do it. And he's like, I'm sorry. He goes, but, you just don't have that big of a presence. And we want somebody who has a bigger presence. So I got back to my office and I realized
And this was 3.5 years ago?
About 4 years ago, I think.
Wow.
I think it was 4 years ago. And so I finally came to the realization, I'm like, everybody that I've done business with is retired or dead or both. And so I'm like, holy cow, I'm selling to my children. And, I got to learn how to sell to them. And so I just said, okay. So I hired a full-time person whose only function was to handle the websites and that type of deals. Well, she was actually very good at the graphics and those kind of things, but she couldn't spell. She had no idea what our business was. So she was like Wikipediaing what civil engineering is. And those, so we had to, so after a little bit of time, when I figured out I wasn't much better off than I had originally started out, because, she just kind of made things worse. So believe it or not, when we really got on top of it was when COVID hit. And we got lucky because Chuck E. Cheese they're actually called CEC Entertainment, and they're headquartered here in Dallas. Well, did
you go in there and hire somebody?
No. Well, what happened was when COVID hit, they laid off all of their marketing group. And so the guy who actually designed the websites and all the interactive stuff for them is a friend of a friend. And so he's like, hey, why don't you call that guy and he can work on your websites. So our websites, when you go look at them, they were actually built by the guy that was the head web designer for Chuck E. Cheese.
That's awesome.
That's rad.
Yeah. And so we still have to update a lot of it. We got to make it a lot more interactive, or a lot more, getting our story a lot more out there. But from where we were now and where we were 4 years ago, nobody can tell me I don't have a social presence anymore, because we've got it.
That's so funny. I mean, because we talk about it all the time, like, especially, so we talk to all different contractors, all walks of life, small, large, everything. But that mindset is there with the people doing, B2C work, right? Or doing home remodels and all that, or landscaping, or that kind of stuff. That mindset is there with a lot of those successful contractors, because it has to be. And we've experienced it from what we've talked to, most people in the B2B, right, like you are, in the commercial space, they don't really find the need to, or because, there's, in their mind, developers and owners and all that, they're not out there looking at that kind of stuff. But you've literally just got a story that proves that they are. And that was 4 years ago, right? Like, yes. I expected that story to be 2 or 3 months ago, not 4 years ago.
Let's see, it was 2000. No, it was 3 years ago. It was 2017.
Still, I mean, that's crazy that was the mindset. Well, because it's transparency, right? Like, just like you said, they can't verify anything. And the world that we're living in, like you said, dealing with the children or millennials, if we want to label them, but
hey, everybody, I have a right to call it that. I got a 33-year-old daughter.
There you go. Yeah.
Yep. I blame myself.
But I mean, they live in a world where they demand, and I say they, like I'm not one of them. I guess I'm on the cusp, right? I'm like 37, but they live in a world where they demand transparency and they demand to see. And it's almost like if you're not there, if you're not out there visible, it's why aren't you? What are you hiding? Why can't you show me what you're doing?
Exactly. It's like you don't exist.
Right.
And like what you had said earlier, the business to business, I had always said, because every person who like looked at my old website, they would say, oh, you don't have any SEO going on or SEM or
yes, we don't give a shit.
After I Googled what that meant, I was like, I don't need it, because the only thing my website does is give me legitimacy. So if I go to meet with somebody and I say, hey, I want to do this,
I can put it on my business card. Yeah.
Yeah. Then they go and they look and go, okay, well, this guy's not working out of the back of his truck. So, he at least has a website. And so it was always just for legitimacy purposes. But now, like, it's your whole story.
Yep.
Yeah. And so you have to like constantly be updating it, and you have to constantly be out there, and you have to constantly be putting your mark on everything. And so like I've completely transitioned, because when I promoted myself to CEO, I did that because
look what I've done.
Yeah, I know.
You deserve a raise and a title.
I don't get paid. So, but I did that because I wanted each one of my other operating companies to have an equity partner in it that's the president of that company, so that they're invested in it, so that they, that their money is along with mine. And so my job is to filter them opportunities and business. I use my connections, who's still alive, but I use I use my connections, and I do all the things that keeps the name up and out there, which, I had never used the term brand other than saying, I like that brand of cereal or whatever.
Right.
But now I talk about it all the time: branding. And it's one of the reasons why I try and keep all the names of my other companies as Arendelle, is so it creates a brand.
Yep.
And so it's a whole different way that I've had to convert myself to catch up with the marketplace that went past me. And so, I've had to change my thought processes, because I do want this company to survive me. I do want all these different variations of the companies that my holding company owns to survive me, and to still be operating enterprises whenever I'm gone. And so it's become, now my whole thing is I'm out in the marketplace, and, I may go play in a golf tournament. Well, why are you playing a golf tournament? Well, because if people see our name on the thing, it's brand recognition. And so it's a very, the world that I'm living in now, the world that I'm working in now, is very different than when I started my first engineering company, 24 years ago.
But you did it though, like you changed, right? Because there's so many people in your position 3 years ago that would have told those kids to pound sand, right? I mean, and you might have done that 15 years ago, right? Or you might have wanted to, right? Like,
well, I won't tell you exactly what I told the guy. No, you're right. But I realized that I have a lot of mouths to feed, and so I had to change with the times. I mean, and I don't mean to make fun of millennials or whatever, other than, they're just easy to make fun of. But we had a guy working for us. He was a CAD guy. He, computer automated drafting. He that was his deal. And like, he came in, and like his first day at work, he was an hour late. And then half an hour later, he went to lunch. And then he would, you could not stand between him and the door at 5 o'clock because you'd get run over. And so but he was like, I want more money, and I should be making more than this and this and that. And so we got to where it kind of became a joke, because most of the guys, even at that time, we still had a lot of the old construction hands, the guys that smoke a pack a day, and, they're at 4:01, they're on their first whiskey. And so I still had a lot of those guys around. So, part of our genre of our time, you make fun of those people, that's just, you can't do that nowadays, because you're
right.
Social media will brand you as they'll have a name for you. But So you can't do that stuff anymore like we used. It used to. It was just fun, but you can't do that anymore. So we would make fun of this guy and everything like that. And so we used to make fun of him all the time about his participation trophies and his and all that kind of stuff. And I had a office manager who worked for me at the time, and she was rough. And she just gave that guy so much crap. And he stuck around. He worked for me for a couple of years, and I don't know why, because it was just like something with him every day. And it wasn't even me that had to harass him. It was the people that worked for me, and they just gave this guy crap all day long. Well, now, the bulk of my company is folks that are in that late 20s and early 30s and, age range. And it's because I don't say it's because of, but it's just a point of, that's now my developers, that's now my client base. Mm-hmm. I mean, this first apartment that I'm developing, my co-developers are in their early 30s. And, that's who I'm co-developing this with. Yep. And it's a
little bit of a different world, huh?
Yeah. Thanks for that. It is. It's a very different world because they spit off these ROIs and NOIs and all this other stuff. Like, I still to this day don't understand what triple net is, but they spout off all this stuff and they're talking about it so fast. And I'm Googling the whole time. I'm trying to look and see what I'm doing down here. So I have my phone down here.
They got Google on the flip phone?
You know what? I'll take that. I'll take that. Hey, you know what? I miss my Motorola Razr, dude.
Right?
Those were awesome.
Yeah. I used to have that one with the big flip and have the big long.
Almost,
almost the Gordon Gekko. But if there's one thing that I can say, and especially if there's any of the people that are in my age range and have been doing business as long as I have, is you do have to adjust. You do have to be ready to make changes to the ways that you are marketing and selling your business. I have a clear understanding now of the difference between a marketing person and a salesperson. I have a very clear idea of what each one of those groups do. And I'll tell you another funny story. Several years back, one of my wife and I's good friends was the marketing person for 7-Eleven, and her product was the Big Go. Okay. So she was the countrywide marketing person for the Big Go. That one product. That one product had one person who was the market. So like she was the one that made deals with Disney and all of them to put the different characters and all that stuff like that. Yeah. That was what she did. She built that brand. Well, she got laid off, and this was about 10 years ago, I guess. No, 8 years ago. She gets laid off. So I told her, I said, hey, why don't you come work with me? I really don't have any kind of marketing as per se, and I really want you to, help me, build a marketing plan and that kind of stuff. So the first thing she does is she has this meeting with me, and she's got this marketing wheel. I'd never seen one before. Didn't know one existed, but it looks like a roulette wheel. And so, she's got a master's degree in marketing, so I'm sure this is something they taught her in school. But so she has this marketing wheel, and she's doing all this. Where do you want to be in 10 years? What do you want this? What do you want this marketing to do for you? And I said, well, I have to tell you, I'm pretty simple. For me, marketing makes the phone ring, and sales answers the phone. Mm-hmm. And that was my thought process for, the difference between the two of them.
Right.
Is marketing is to make the phone ring, and sales is the one that actually answers the call. And so she one of the things she hated was my business card. And she kept telling me, you need to change this and change that. And you need to change the font. You need to change this and change that. She goes, what do you want this business card to say about you? And I said, I want
my phone number.
Yeah. I said, I want to hand it to people, and then they look at it and then they call me. And she's like, no, you have to tell your story with it. I'm not little bitty thing. So I've been through a lot of education on things that have nothing to do with actually whether or not I can design a building or I can build a building. And I promise you, I can do both. But but all of these other things that are going on, and the process that I've had to go through to get to that point is very different, and just like, and I'll tell you the whole reason why I started developing about 6 weeks ago, or I'm sorry, 6 months ago, is because when COVID hit and we had to lay off 80 people from our concrete company. Wow. We had to lay off 80 people. And, I realized very quickly that all of the good that I had built, as big of a company as I'd built, as much as I had built up, when something like this hits, the income just stops. Yeah. I mean, we go from, this large amount being billed out and collected every month to nothing being billed and collected. And it happened in a span of like 2 weeks.
Yep.
And even the 87 crash and the 07 crash, or actually people call 08 or 09, but I call it the 07 crash. We had a little bit of time frame to go, oh, holy shit, excuse me, I'm not supposed to say it, but
no, you're good.
No, you're good.
But with this, it was just kind of like, it's gone,
Yep.
And I realized that all of the construction that I had been involved with all of these years, I never owned any of it. I handed over a lot of keys, but I never owned any of it. I didn't have any assets that were making money.
Right.
Were in actual cash money. Like, we own a heavy piece of equipment. Technically, it's making us money. But I mean, like, that is actually putting money in a mailbox, know?
Yeah.
And so I decided that we were going to start developing, and I just thought, I'll just become a developer. And that was my, being naive about what happened before I would ever get involved in the job. So I've got a really good understanding of what it goes from, to what it goes to the way that, the project's like never ending. Even after you turn it over, then, if you build a multifamily, well, then you got to have a management company that manages it, and they got to, it's a never ending story, or, And so when I first thought about this, I was like, okay, well, I'm a builder and I charge them X amount % to build the building. I'll charge them a lower %. They give me equity in the building. So as they gather and they take on rents, from their clients, I can just get money. Well, there's a lot more to it than that, but in technicalities that can work. And so, like, even with this multifamily that I'm doing, I am half of the design fees I'm putting back into the project to buy an equity position. And then once the construction is going, I'm joint venturing with another contractor, and I'm putting the fees that I earned during that time frame, I'm putting those back into the project as well. Wow. But at the end of the day, I will own a piece of a $35 million project, and that ownership is there. It's an asset, and it's there. And so we're now in the midst of, I've probably got 9 projects that are in some form of negotiations and that type of stuff, medical facilities and townhouse development, 2 townhouse developments. And I'm looking for I've got a second multifamily coming online, and then I'm looking at a third one. So, like I said, it's a different thought process. But one of the things that that's good is that, God forbid, another pandemic or epidemic or what-a-demic happens. I can't. There's a way for me to hold on to the employees. Because even laying off the 80 that I had, being in concrete construction, the workers come and go. Right. I mean, that's you hire them in groups. Like you don't ever have a concrete finisher come up and say, hey, I need a job, and you hire that finisher. You track down a superintendent
who's got a crew, and he
brings 25 or 30 guys with him. Right.
Right.
And so you're hiring them in a group session. And when they quit, they kind of all
Right.
They'll go together.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah, they quit as a group together. And it was funny because my wife, who comes from a medical executive background, and she dealt with large surgeon groups and hospitals and that kind of stuff, very professional atmosphere. And she came over and started trying to help me when we got so big. And she would see these people come and go, and she's like, "What are you going to do to retain them?" And I'm like, "We don't." She goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "We don't. They come and go." I said, "That person over there may be back 2 years from now. Go leave, we'll come back." And she started trying to interview operators for our heavy equipment. And she'd come to me and go, "Their resume is like 7 pages long." And I said, "Hire them." And she goes, "What do you mean? It's 7 pages long." And I go, "Yeah, but that means they've been on a lot of projects."
Yeah. It's not like the white collar world where multiple jobs in a
is looked down upon.
Yeah.
And this one, if they can pass the drug test on that day and they can, they don't fall asleep in the equipment, we're golden.
Yeah.
So it's and she couldn't get it. It was a learning curve, because I'm like, it's not like with you where you hire doctors and you have a 5-month credentialing process to get them approved by the hospital to do surgeries over there. So you're hiring these guys 8 months in advance. I mean, we're hiring them, and when the job ends, they leave and they go work on another project. We had one operator that left to go work. She went and operated some equipment in Antarctica.
Oh.
And so, of course, because they're in Antarctica, they get paid these huge amounts of money that we can't meet. I mean, we're not going to pay somebody $120 an hour to operate a piece of machinery, but, we're not asking them to live in, 80
Antarctica.
temperature. But it was interesting. And then she comes back and she works for us for another 6 or 7 months. Good operator. Works for us for another 6 or 7 months. And then she takes off and she'll, go work in the Alaska man camps or something up there. I mean, that's just kind of the way the business is.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
so,
for sure.
It's but it's fun. I mean, you asked me earlier how I got into this business, and I never answered that question. And the real truth of it is my father was a quality control director for a ready-mix concrete company. So he was the guy that actually designed the mixes, and he said, it's this much sand, this much rock, this much water, so on and so forth. But he had grown up as a sharecropper. When he was a kid, they didn't go to school the first 6 weeks of the year because they were harvesting. And so, he grew up with a different work ethic than most, and so did I. 3 a.m. on Saturday, I wasn't sleeping. I was at a batch plant with him because, if we're 6 and we don't have a job, we're lazy. So it was, when I was in college, and he was like, if you want any kind of spending money, you're going to work. And so, I was working, and so he got me a job at a testing lab. And so I actually was going to go to school for banking. God knows why. I don't know, but I was going to go for banking. But in 1982, they started indicting like Keating and all those guys with the banking scandals, scandals. And I was like, well, maybe banking's not the place I want to be.
These guys aren't as cool as I thought they were, huh?
No, nobody looks good in orange. I don't care what. Orange is not that pretty. So I just kind of fell into it. And, I originally thought, I'm that guy that knows how to build it. I'm that guy that knows how to, oversee the engineering of it. I know I'm that guy that can do this and that. And I believed that for 9 years until I got into the office, and then it turned out I was pretty good at sales. And, I've been able to be involved in some really nice projects. I've been able to, see some construction, some different types of construction that a lot of people don't get to see in their lifetime. It's been an interesting career. And so,
no shit. Well, some of the places you talk about, that's I know, right? That's crazy.
Oh gosh. Oh yeah. I mean, we, back in the late 80s, they were going to build an atom smasher in Texas. It was called the Superconducting Super Collider. And it was a one-of-a-kind facility. There's only one other facility like it and it's in Switzerland. And they were building it. And if you lived in Fort Worth for a while, you may know where this town is. It's Waxahachie, Texas.
Yep.
And they were building
in the middle of nowhere.
Yep. And they were building this down there, and they got $2 billion into construction, and Clinton got elected and cut funding.
Oh.
And so I was part of the engineering group that was on that project. And so, like, I can drive to the middle of nowhere and tell you that there is tunnels running underneath this, or there's a water treatment facility out there that we built, or the magnetic development laboratory that we built out there. And then, I've been, I've been in the middle of a site that has 5 nuclear reactors within a 5-mile area, and they're producing the explosive power of the nuclear bomb. And so it has been a very interesting career to, and so I will not finish my career and go, well, that was kind of boring.
That's true.
Yeah. And it is a different world, the way that things are developed now, and the way that the skylines have really changed, and things have diversified as far as the way buildings look and the way projects look. And 35, 40 years ago, developers, if they wanted to build a high rise, they wanted to maximize their space for what they could rent inside the building. So they were square, or they were rectangle, or that there wasn't anything really pretty about them. But now you drop down, you see like buildings with holes in the middle of them, or and that's because all of a sudden the customer became they wanted to drive up to a cool looking building, and instead of having to say, oh, you got to go to 1200 Elm, they would say, hey, you go to the building with the big hole in the center of it.
Right.
So it is very different the way that things are built, and so people have had to get engineers and architects, we've had to get craftier and
get creative.
Yeah, but even in the architecture side, you are very, it's not like you can put this artistic flair on things. I mean, your job is about codes and,
structure and
your occupancy levels and, and that kind of stuff. And engineers, everything is black and white, everything has to be built on a safety factor. And, and so it's it's not as glamorous as some might think. And people will go, oh, he developed this and he built and he designed that. It's such a wonderful. And I'll be, quite frank, I'll probably make some people mad with this. I've been in about 7 Frank Lloyd Wright houses, and I don't get it.
I agree. He has a strange cat.
It's not just he was strange. I don't get what they. I mean, it's a house.
Yeah.
And that's a Frank Lloyd Wright house. I mean, when I went up to Chicago the first time, I wanted to go to a Frank Lloyd Wright's house. I went to this house and I'm walking around and they're going, okay, all right, can we go now? I mean, and I was so excited to see it because that's what you hear about it. And maybe some of that's because, the engineering background, we're very black and white.
Yeah.
We're problem solvers. We're very black and white. But I was looking around going, there's got to be something pretty about this. I'm missing something, something's not telling me. But it is a different world. And, podcast, oh my God, podcasts, would have never been around. But, podcast now is just the DJs of the past.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The new radio for everybody.
Yeah.
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 On demand, on demand radio. That's what I told my grandpa when I first told him I was starting one. He said, well, what the hell is that? I said, well, remember when you were used to kid and you used to sit around the radio and you had to wait till a certain time till your show came on? He said, yeah. I said, well, this is that, but you get to listen to whatever you want.
Yeah.
His mind was blown.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have that little podcast app on my phone.
Right.
But I've never listened to a live podcast. I can't hardly figure out how to get 2 things on there, and I can't ever get it to just go to the next in the same line.
Yeah.
I have to go back and come back to get to the next podcast. And some of these I'm listening to stuff that's I was on one the other day and I thought I was listening to something about the election, and it was from the election 4 years ago. And they were talking about, well, Clinton is, they're going to debate, and it's Clinton and this, and I'm like, wait a minute, what? Clinton's back in the race? And so I didn't realize, dumb me, I didn't realize I was listening to a podcast from 4 years ago.
Just get your daughter up to speed. I'm sure she'll help you out, right?
No, I'll tell you what. It was funny because when we hired the girl to be our marketing person, when we hired her, okay.
I'll tell you what else.
Something.
The glimmer of hope in between each episode.
You know what? My phone.
Do you have a podcast played right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. It heard me say podcast and it started doing a podcast. This thing was a foot away from me.
They got that on the flip phone too?
Right? Hey,
Technology, man.
Hey, just
That's
so
crazy.
you know, I do understand enough about technology.
Oh, I could hear you.
Oh yeah,
You have to now, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, you have to. But I tell you that I was at a Sprint store about 2 years ago, and I was getting one of the new iPhone versions or whatever, and the kid that was waiting on me, he was going, "Oh, you just do this, you do that, and you do this, and you do that," and he was telling me all these features that I have, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you should know this because your other phone had it, the one you're turning in," and I'm like, "It did."
It did.
So he's telling me all these things. And I said, how much would it cost me just to have you come to my office like once a week and teach me about the technology I already know? Just find out what I have in my office and do it. And so my estimating department, they use all these different, programs to do takeoff.
Softwares and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Bluebeam and PlanSwift and on-screen takeoff and all these different programs. I own 4 versions of Bluebeam. I don't know how to turn it on. And so when I'm doing takeoffs, I actually have a plotter and I print the drawings out and I'm out there with my scale and I'm measuring. Matter of fact, you can't see it because I have that screen thing on, but I got a drafting table sitting right next to me. And so
old school, man. That's awesome.
I roll it out and I'm actually measuring that stuff and I'm pretty freaking good at it. I'll tell you, but I was like, I have this technology. I don't even know that I own it. And when we hired the marketing person, they kept talking about how many, hits or however many, I don't know, forget what you call it, but how many times people look at what you're doing. And she wasn't really good at it and she wasn't getting it. And my wife turned around and says, we'll just get Sophia as my daughter. And she was about 14 at the time. She said, if she can get more than that, just hand it to her. And so we gave it to her and she got like 1,000 looks or whatever.
That's what I tell my daughter all the time. I said, help me out, man. Share my stuff and get it out there.
In my time, it was I had to teach my dad how to do the VCR.
Right.
The other way around.
Yep.
Yeah. And so there's a lot more technology now. I've got a 7-year-old son that he can operate his iPad way better than I can.
Yeah.
My iPad is just sitting like over here, and I'm not even really sure what I use it for. I've got one, but I'm not quite sure what I use it for. I don't think I've turned it on for a while. And so like he's,
all over it. Yeah.
He's all over it and he can download stuff quicker than anybody I've ever seen. The reason I know that is because
your checkbook.
No. Well, that too. That did actually happen on not Minecraft, but that other game.
Fortnite.
Oh my God. I don't know how many suits that or whatever it is, the clothes or whatever it is they buy. But yeah, $600 in 1 month. And so we had to cut off the access to the, automatic, I can turn this on and, so we had to cut him off. And, but I mean, he can download stuff, but I get the same thing on my phone because the Apple accounts are tied together. Right. Like every time he's downloading something, it starts downloading on my phone. Yeah. And so I'm like, I'm calling my wife going, hey, would you look over there and see what he's doing? So I do know that technology. I've got that part. I've got that part of it down, but it's really different because, and I talk so much about how rough it was when we were growing up. It's just like my father would tell me his stories of working the fields before school and all of those kind of things.
Walking backwards through the snow. And
in his household, they didn't have any like bandages or anything. If you cut yourself, they poured kerosene in it because kerosene fixed everything. And so I'm telling my kids about the fact that, if we were really good, we got FM radio, and we had the 8-track we converted the 8-track to the cassette, and they're like, oh my God, and so now I can only imagine what my son is going to be, telling his kids about how rough it was when he was a child.
Right.
Mom and dad used to take my iPad away from me. Okay. Whoa. But on the other flip side, I didn't have to grow up with social media. So like I could screw up really well and only my closest friends knew about it.
Nobody knew about it. Yep.
Nowadays, if you sneak the wrong way, it goes viral.
Yep.
Everybody knows about it.
Yeah.
And so you're like, I don't even know what I would not have got away with.
Right.
I mean, we were, things were a lot easier. Nobody locked the doors. I mean, it was very, laid back and that kind of stuff. And it's just not that way nowadays. Like, you can't do anything. And if you state an opinion, you're going to have 6,000 people going, they're attacking from all sides. And so like, I have to be very careful. The only social media that I really, me personally, not what the folks do for my companies or whatever, but for me personally, I'm on LinkedIn. And so like, I have to be very careful about whether I like a comment or not.
Right.
Because somebody's going to, start.
Everybody's seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's going to start going after that comment.
Yeah.
And I made the mistake on Instagram of making a comment that I guess somebody thought was a little too far right. And I immediately got a backlash with somebody saying, oh, it's because you're a CEO. And so you won't understand. I'm like, look, dude, I grew up in a 1,200 square foot box, with 3 sisters and 2 cousins all living in the same house with my parents. And so with 1 bathroom, and I was the only male. So think about that. I did not grow up privileged and I had to work my way through school and all that. So yes, I may have that title, but that doesn't mean I'm a Harvard educated, wuss that was handed something, I had to work my way up but you have to be very careful. And it was all because I liked to comment.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so basically I can't like a comment. I can't state my own personal opinion about something because I'm going to get attacked from 16 different ways.
Yep. Got to be careful, especially when you got that many companies to watch out for.
Oh, yeah. I'm almost, before I come on the podcast, I'm like calling my attorney going, hey, do you need to sit beside me? Like I'm in a hearing in front of Congress, And
we've had one of those before that had to, he wanted to make sure that everything was on the up and up before,
Are you serious?
Yeah. Just to make sure. But
he came into the studio as he was walking through the door. Yeah.
Talking to his attorney. Yeah. But we're all good, man. We keep it light. It's all fun. Yeah. Nothing too crazy.
I'll be frank. I hate to use the term, I'll be honest with you, because it makes you sound like you're lying the other time. So I'll be frank with you. That is that, quite frankly, I don't care.
Right.
I mean, I'm still of that genre where I don't care, but I realize, it can hurt my business or whatever.
Yeah, there's other people too.
And my wife is all the time telling me, she's like, you got to watch what you say. You never know what people are listening or what they're going to think or whatever. And I said, the way I look at it is I'm 55 and I seriously doubt I'm going to live to be 110. So that means I'm on the downhill slide of life. And so I don't care. I've already climbed the hill.
We're on the way down. Yeah,
I'm on the way down. So what do I care?
Yeah.
And so it's quite funny too, because just to say this correctly, I've always been a motorcycle rider. Like I've owned motorcycles for years, but I hadn't had one in a long time. And my wife was like, you're not getting another motorcycle. You're not getting another motorcycle. I'm like, watch. And so I did. I mean, one night she pulled up and there was a trailer there and I bought it from a guy in Ohio and they were delivering it. And I hadn't told her, and this motorcycle's coming off the trailer as she pulls up. So all of these friends of mine, all of these other parents that I'm hanging out with, the guys are like going, man, you're my hero. You just
just did it.
Pull the trigger. Yeah. And they're like, man, my wife would kill me. And I'm like, look, I love my wife with all due respect to her, but I've worked very hard in my lifetime and I did not work this hard so that somebody can go, no, you can't have that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I worked very hard And she's like, well, it's not about money. It's about you could get killed on it. I'm like, you know what? I work on construction sites. I walk out on cranes.
I get killed every day.
I can get killed out there. And more than likely, I'm going to fall off my porch and die, you
never know.
Or I have a swimming pool. I could drown.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want me to not swim? Because I might drown. There's an offbeat chance I might drown. She's like, well, it's different with a motorcycle. It's not any different. What you got to be is not stupid.
Yep.
And then, but then again, I say things like that. And then I'm buying 4-wheelers for my son and we're going out and getting as dirty as we can. And people are like, well, what's so fun about that? I said, I find anything I can be stupid on.
Not helping your cause there at all, are you?
Oh, no. But you know what? People, they if you're like that, people will love you or hate you, but most of the part, at least they'll respect you.
Yeah.
Because you're never talking behind their back. You're not lying to them. I have always lived my life by, no one will ever wonder what I think of them because I will tell them. And in the same point, they can tell me the same thing. I can take it.
Yep.
I promise you, I can take it.
No hurt feelings there. Yeah.
No. One of my favorite songs is by Godsmack, and he's talking about, I'm going to beat your ass, and he's like, if you say this or you do this wrong to me, I'm going to knock you in your face. And to me, that's like so poignant because the lead singer of Godsmack is like 5'4", and so it's like you got to respect that guy, and there's a country singer, Brantley Gilbert, that talks about, around here, if a man hits a woman, we're going to beat his ass in the parking lot. And I'm like, yeah, those are my kind of people.
Right.
Those are my guys because, I would much rather have somebody come up and say, you know what, quite frankly, I really don't like your personality, but I think you're smart in business. So I'm going to do business with you because,
it's good for both of us.
Yeah.
It's good for both of us. We can get it done. You don't have to love the people that you're in business with. You do at some point actually have to somewhat get along so you don't kill each other, but you don't have to love them. And a lot of the smartest people that I've learned from, that I have, made money with and done things with, some of the people I respect the most are the ones that I would not sit down at a meal with.
Yeah.
And because I'd come across the table. And I'll tell you what, the last boss that I had, crazy engineer guy, crazy. I mean, he was literally certifiable. He taught me more in the 4 years that I worked for him by
what not to do.
By not telling me so much what to do, just demanding results. Mm-hmm. And he was the guy, like I said, I came in out of the field and he told me I had to go sell something, and I go, how? And he goes, just go do it, And it was that, he let me manage accounting and he let me manage all these different things. And I learned how to be self-employed by him because he left me alone.
Yep. Let you do it all.
Oh yeah. But he was crazy. Nuts. That boy was crazy. He would do stuff. He would do things that were so off the wall. I mean, he had secretaries signing contracts that said if they broke the copier, they had to pay for it. I mean, that was the way he was. Now, I did that part of his business teachings I didn't follow. But
that's probably better that you didn't do that. Yeah. Stick to your own stuff there.
Well, I would have never done that. Right. I thought it was quite comical. I thought it was pretty stupid of the people who signed those contracts. Right. It was, but I never liked him. But I had a tremendous amount of respect for him because that guy was making so much money. It was ridiculous how much money he was making. And it was a sight to see because this guy would buy his clothes at Sam's. And I'm not kidding you. He would buy his clothes at Sam's. And I knew he had at least $40 million in the bank. I saw the bank account.
Jeez.
And,
that's crazy.
And he was literally buying his clothes at Sam's.
Good for him, man.
No, well, I told him, I'm like, why do you want to make all this money if you're not going to use it? It's kind of like Warren Buffett. I watched the documentary on him. Have you ever seen it?
No,
not yet.
You got to see it. He lives in a house that's maybe $150,000.
Oh, yeah. I have seen that. Yeah.
He drives a car that's like 25 years old, and it's you can have a lot of respect and say, wow, that's really respectful. He's so humble and all this kind of stuff. But why would you want to keep going out and making all that money
if you're not going to use it?
if you're not going to use it somewhat, if you're not going to create something good, or, you know, I mean, it would be different if he worked all that hard and then he said, okay, I'm going to give 95% of my income away to charities or whatever.
Right.
And I don't remember him doing that.
No.
I mean, you know, and no disrespect, I'm just saying that there's got to be a motivation behind what he is doing, you know, to continue to do that. Because for me, I want to build a legacy because, you know, I have a young son. You know, I, at 48 years old, decided that it would be a great idea to have another kid. And so, you know, I have a 7-year-old son. And so now I want to leave a legacy for him. And, you know, I should be ready to die about the time he comes out of college. And so I'm going to need somebody to take over.
Take it over.
Yeah. And so, you know, so now my motivation is I want to leave a legacy and I want to leave something good behind, something that people can remember. And I never worried about that before. I never thought about it before. And so it's not about money, and it's not about glory or any of that kind of stuff. It's about leaving something behind that people will remember that you did. And, you know, one of the proudest things in my office is I almost have a picture for every project I've ever been involved with. And so, like, it's 3 walls of pictures. And, you know, I'm sure there's ones I've forgotten about, but it's, you know, it's that I can walk back and I can remember, or I can drive around Dallas, Fort Worth, or South Florida, or northern New Mexico, or Chicago, and I can drive around and I can go, I was involved in that project. 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 And so that's my proudest moments, you know, is that is the legacy that I will leave.
That's awesome, man. Well, James, we're getting close. We got to wrap up here on time, but
all right.
I think it's been awesome, man. I love
knowledge and experience.
The experience is awesome, and love to hear that stuff, man. But before we let you go, we want to let you give a chance to shout out or let people know where to find you and all those new social medias you got going on, and how do people get a hold of you? Or?
Hey, don't look at Twitter or Facebook or Instagram right now, because it's still a legacy of the girl that couldn't spell. So
perfect.
But you can go to our main website is
the brand new website, right?
Yeah, is Arundel Group LLC.com, and there are links to all of our companies on there.
Awesome.
Believe it or not, we actually own a medical consulting company.
Oh, geez, you got it all, man.
Well, that was my wife. You know, she's the one that handles that stuff. People ask me, what does your medical consulting company do? And I said, I have no idea. You know, I'm like the CEO of GE, because they own NBC and like 6,000 other businesses. Their CEO doesn't know what each one of them does.
Right.
But she does something with the practice part of doctors, their business practice. And so she helps them set up, and she does stuff with the insurance company. She does all the stuff I would not even think about doing.
Yeah.
But, you know, most of our companies are all all of our other companies are construction related. From we're licensed. We operate in all 50 states.
Awesome.
Our engineering does. Our construction companies operate in 40 states. And, you know, our development is new and just getting started, but we will do development for fee, and we'll actually finance the project and allow people that want to own but don't want to come up with a, you know, crap load of money up front. Right. We will develop and build it, and then they can pay it out over years, and they'll pay it to us.
Awesome.
So we do all of that, and so, you know, I really appreciate you guys talking to me about this.
No, man, we appreciate the time, man. It's been awesome. We'll make sure we point everybody to your website. And
no, I appreciate that, because the first thing I'm going to do when we hang up is I am going to put on my resume that I, you know, see me on a podcast.
And there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Well,
add it to your business card, your little business card.
Yeah, right. As seen on.
Yeah, as seen on. Exactly. I'm going to be in the CV. You know how in CV,
little end cap. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's what I'm going to do.
Sir.
It happened on the job podcast. Hey, by the way, I have a question for you. How long have y'all had this?
February. February we started.
But this is episode 97, so we've been doing quite a bit.
Yeah.
No, y'all been busy.
Yeah, real busy.
I don't think I've slept 97 times.
It's been a lot.
All right. Well, listen,
yes, sir.
Guys, have a happy election day.
Yeah, you too, man. Appreciate it.
Enjoy, and send me. You have my email. Send me when you guys are actually on, like live, or We
don't do anything live. Everything's recorded, but we were releasing them kind of once a day. But I will give you a heads up when we have an idea when yours is going to get released, probably in the next couple weeks after we get it back from our editor. Cool.
No problem. Yeah, we'll tell your editor to be nice to me.
Always.
For sure.
All right, guys.
All right, sir. Have a good one.
All right, James. Thanks, buddy.
Yep.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. And if you've made it this far, go ahead and give us a like or 5 stars or whatever means you like us.
Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. And check out our website for more video content and extras.
While you're there, shoot us a message if you want to be a guest. We'd love to have you on.
Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.